Hey, everybody. So this is Ian and Drew here from Bullseye Sellers, and we're today interviewing Doug Joyce as part of our successful Amazon CEO series. And I'm really, really excited to have Doug here because Doug built a brand on Amazon, just like most CEOs that we know, from absolute scratch. And he now has passive income that has afforded him a lifestyle that he could not probably conceive of years ago. So we're going to hear his story today. So thanks for coming, Doug, and I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to chatting with you.
yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. Happy to download the info.
So I think the first question here is I just want to hear your story. Like, you're obviously a car guy. I could tell by your background. You're not a likely prospect for where you've gone on Amazon, in my opinion, at least. So how did you get onto the Amazon space and start that journey?
Uh-huh. Yeah. So it was back when ASM was doing their thing, right? I think I was ASM 5 or 6. My brother-in-law was in it, and he was sending me the videos, the little preamble videos, the hype videos for selling ASM. And I just started a lawn business as my little side gig. I had a 9 to 5, but I want to do a little side gig, and I had that going. And I was like all about the ASM, but I'm like, I don't want to jump off of my lawn business that I just started and go chase these butterflies. So I put it off for a little bit. And I just did the lawn business and whatever. I built up some cash, and then it was irrefutable, and I couldn't resist doing the ASM thing. So I literally had $3,000 saved up,
That's
and
crazy.
I started. I mean, I was gonna do my first product. I was gonna do is gaffer tape, and it was perfect. And then I went into a whole thing about what am I gonna call the name of the company, and I like spun around in circles for like 45 days thinking about that, and then still didn't come up with anything. And then when I went back to Amazon and relooked at gaffer tape, there's like 4 guys doing 50 grand a month. They weren't there before. And I'm like, oh God, I blew it. It's over. Anyway, so then I just went on from there, and my wife actually got interested and started scoping out, and she's like, oh, why don't we do this? You know, why don't we do something in a dog space? And then I took my $2,000, bought my first product, which I'll have you know, by the time it landed and I redid the math, it was now costing me $5 each sale. Right. Because
Wow.
I
Yeah.
misestimated all the fees and everything, but I'm like, so what? I don't care. I'm doing it anyway because I'm going to learn from it. It's a cost of doing business. And shortly after that, I realized, I was doing this one product, and I thought, because the FBAs were killing me. So I did it for like 2 or 3 weeks, and then I realized, wait a minute, if I put two of them together, I can charge double the price and have the same FBA fee. Boom, and it solved the problem. And now instead of it costing me $5, I was making like $9 a sale.
It's crazy, man. I mean, the story that you're telling, right? We've heard this before, right? Some people have a couple $1,000 and they go and invest in it, and what people don't do, which is cool that you're doing, is they're telling you basically how much you messed up, right? Like you're losing $5 on every sale. Like, why would you go forward with that?
Right.
But it's like, you invested all the time and the energy into like learning it and like investing in like the time and the effort to do all that. Like fast forwarding now, like where's your business, right? So like that was your starting point. Like where are you today?
Yeah. So last year I grew by 60% over the year before. And we're into we're in the 8-figure zone now.
Yeah, right on. We don't want to
Wow.
like divulge any like secret information or anything. So, but like letting people know kind of like just the level that you're at, Doug, is like really helpful. So
Yeah.
from losing $5 per unit,
Yeah.
all the way to 8-figure
And having
seller, that's pretty
$2,000
impressive.
to his name.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've done businesses before. I had lawn businesses and snowplow removal companies and so on. And so the $5 losing per sale, I didn't care because I knew it was just a cost of doing business. Like, I'm going to learn from this and I'm going to figure it out. And that's what I have to do. And so, I wasn't all butthurt over it. And I knew that if I just ditched it, I wouldn't go anywhere. But if I continued, I would figure it out and solve the problem.
Yeah. Cool. So going from
What
there
year?
to where you are now, like, I'm just like, I'm like, what's the secret sauce, man? How did you transform yourself? And like, what do you think? Maybe being more specific, because we can cut this up.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think is your secret power or your talent in keeping the success you got today?
um, well, I just got off the phone with someone that works for me, and you know, what I think my strength is in not is not going by things that don't make sense and that I don't understand. And I drill down till I understand the reason for things, either good or bad, right? And I just so for me that works hugely. And I've seen many people, they don't drill down to find the actual real reason for something. They'll assume it's this way or that way without actually getting all the information and knowing. Because if you have all of the information and it's correct, true facts, you could practically be a dummy and make the right choice.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're making decisions off of information which is incorrect or incomplete, even the smartest guy in the world makes decisions which bite him in the ass. So
Yep.
I have sort of a knack for not proceeding until I fully understand something. So I really like to make data-driven choices and decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody does that because it can be uncomfortable to drill
No.
down to find a reason for something. Maybe you don't like it, or maybe it's not what you think it's going to be, or maybe it's going to make you look stupid. None of that matters. We
Or
need to,
make you have to do a huge pivot in a direction you don't want to
right.
go. But that's what the data says, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's great.
that how so let me just clarify an acronym you said earlier. ASM is amazing selling machine.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah.
I did ASM like 6. I don't know if I've even told Drew this, but I did the 6th year course. That's what got me on my path. So it's funny that you say that. Yeah.
I think I was
6 years. That's a commitment.
No. So the numbers are every year they came out with an updated course, Drew. So ASM 1 was the first year. So we were the 5th or 6th generation.
I think it was like every 4 or 6 months they came out with a new one because they needed that fix of the infusion of millions of dollars of sales.
That's true too. So what would you say is advice for someone who's going through that first 24 months, which are really the roughest period, right? That first 2 years where you're like, you got $5,000 to your name. How the hell am I going to start a product? How am I going to get from here to a profitable business? So tell us like what helped you get through that early period.
Well, it might not be sexy, but the thing that enabled me to get through that period was not taking money out of the company. My wife had a really good job. She was the major breadwinner at the time. I had a 9 to 5, which whatever kind of sucked. And I had my landscape business on the side of that. It was still running for the first 2 years of my Amazon business. Um, and I didn't take a penny out of the Amazon business for a year. And I wish I waited 2 years before I took a penny out. Right. So, I've seen it, I've lived it, but like if you are dying for money, if you're going to build your company for money, the first piece of revenue you get, you're finished, you're toast. You won't be able to scale because any profits you make has to go into scaling the business. Like for me, the 2 products that took off for me are the lowest margin products, unfortunately. And so scaling was very difficult for me. I had to use credit cards because, you know, I sell $100 in month one. Okay, and out of that $100, let's say I have $15 profit. Okay, well, that $15 has to go into buying the demand for month number two. But the month number two demand now is double what it was in month number one. So you can't bridge that gap with $15. So I need $50 to bridge that gap. Well, where's that 50 coming from? It's not coming from the profit for month one. So I was under that noose for the first, I don't know, 2 years. Because I was growing nicely, but I didn't have this fat, juicy margin that some of these guys have that get stuff from China. It's like, oh,
Yeah, totally.
it cost me $1, I sell it for 20. It's like, bro, you can fuel crazy expansion with those profits. I couldn't. And so not only did I have that issue, but fortunately I didn't have to take money out. If I had to take money out of the company, would have been done. Would have been done in 4 months.
What do you think about these? What do you think about these businesses that are out there now that are providing this, you know, liquidity capital, right? They're doing what you're talking about. They're providing cash to support inventory, and that lead time on Amazon between when you spend $1 and when you get the dollar back from Amazon. What do you think about those, Doug?
Well, I jumped into bed with those guys. You know, I mean, I did Amazon loans. There was this other company, I forget the name of it, but they gave me a loan. What do I think about them? You know, cash flow management is huge, and you need to look at the time that it takes you to get a product. Like I call my supplier, I need XYZ. Okay, well, do I need to pay him for it then? Does now take him 2 months to get it to me and then me to Amazon? Okay, that's 3 months. I need 3 months of cash flow. So there's a lot of things that go into determining how long you need to tread water for. You know, like I wrestled with my suppliers to give me terms. That's huge. You know, my suppliers I dealt with were in the US. Huge, right? I don't need to pay my guy in China and then it sits on, you know, I pay him and then he doesn't launch it for 30 days. Then it's 30 days on a boat. That's 60 days. I'm out my money. And
Right.
now my sales are still going like this on that 60 days. So that number I forecasted down here is now not even true. By the time I get stuff, and now I'm getting out of stock. Right. So,
Amazing.
so what do I think about those companies? Again, it comes down to, you know, very careful assessment of the numbers and being able to confront the truth of things.
And the truth
Yeah.
being, can I afford to pay myself or not? Can I afford to launch another product yet or not, based on
Right.
the fact that I need this many units of my main product? Those,
Yeah, or I can't launch the 10 products that I think I want to launch. I really only can afford to launch the 3. Which 3 do I go after?
That's a big
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, Drew. Drew's a good point. Like, yeah, some guys are like, oh, I'm going to start with 10 products. Okay, well, guess what? Maybe you can afford that right now. But 60, 90 days in, when your demand for inventory is now 150 grand, you're not going to be able to afford that. As an example.
Yeah.
so how did you know it was okay to start paying yourself? Did you do it out of just necessity? Like, crap, it's been 2 years, I got to take a check. Or were you like, okay, I'm looking for this number?
No, what you said first. my wife's like, when are we going to start getting money? Like, I mean, she's great. But I started paying myself $2,000 a month. That's where I started.
Wow.
2 G's a month is what I paid myself.
Yeah, not very much. Wow. And that's taxable.
Yeah. And then it became 4,000 a month. And you know, I enjoy. I don't know how guys do it. That I've never seen somebody like, oh, I got 100 grand or 200 grand to start my business. I've never seen any of those guys make it. I've never seen one. The guys that I've seen make it are the guys like me who start poor and run it poor. Run it with no money and keep yourself poor. Like, because every decision I made, every penny I spent, I had to make a penny and a half. I had to justify spending that penny. You know, when you're sitting on 100, 200 grand to start a business, you're not as careful and as prudent as you are when you've got 2 G's in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? That's so true, because I have a couple clients like that have come my way. Maybe they're clients that have retained us, maybe they haven't. And I find out they have 6 or 7 vendors that are doing their data research, and this guy's his consultant, and he's hired 3 people over here doing marketing. I'm like, what are you paying in payrolls before your product's even launched?
Yeah.
That's the kind of guy you're talking about.
They've got too much money. I've never seen one of those guys make it. And frankly, if somebody gave me, $250,000 to start this business, I would be worried. Anyway, I would still enforce that I had to make more every month than I was putting into the business. I just don't know how to run it any other way.
It's cool, man. I mean, just from the first part of our conversation to just hearing, about your strengths and like where you started, the strength being that like you really dig deep. I now know why, right? Like just from your starting point, by necessity for you to survive this journey, you had to do it. And so now it's one of your superpowers that you're carrying forward. But it's not just a one-man show anymore today, right? You've got support, whether it's, whatever it is. What's, maybe spend a little bit of time telling us a little bit about like, how are you maintaining the team to continue to be successful, right? In other words, how are you scaling yourself? How are you scaling the human element of your business?
Yeah. I don't know that that's one of my strong points, but I do have a good team around me. And one of the first team member I invested in was somebody to oversee, address, handle, and manage the finances.
Mm.
And when I say that, I don't mean somebody that told me what to spend money on. I mean somebody who could track every penny and could pay the bills, make sure everything's paid on time, that I'm not missing anything, because I'm not the worst at that. And this person handles all my personal finances now, because I can get a credit card bill, I won't pay it, it'll be late, bam, $40 fee, right? Like that kind of stuff. I hate it. I hate dealing with it. And I know that financial management, cash flow management is absolutely critical. And so that's the first person I hired. And she's still with me today, and she does much more now. And back when I had my side note here, back when I had a lawn and snow company in Minnesota, I had no books. And one day I realized I need books. So I hired an accountant, and I sat with her in a room 4 or 5 hours a day for weeks, back doing everything. And I was like, man, how much is it costing me? She said, look, a good accountant finds you money. They're not going to cost you money. They should be making you money, because they're going to find money that people owe you. They're going to save you money in taxes. They're going to save you money in fees that you would be incurring if you didn't have somebody running oversight. So that's a major stable thing in my mind, that when I hired this lady for this time, was that regardless of how much it cost, it would be making me money. And that's a fact. I mean, she's saved me thousands of dollars just by having the books in a manner in which I can go back and look. Like Amazon right now owes me over $250,000 in lost inventory.
Holy moly.
I wouldn't know that, much less have the administrative proof to come to Amazon with to demand payment of these monies, unless I had my stuff in order. Right?
Right.
Good example.
And it's my team that keeps that stuff in order, not me.
Yeah. And it's not your superpower, like you said, right? Like this is not what you're good at.
It's my Achilles heel.
Smart.
Achilles heel, exactly. Yeah. Well, I want to move over to Amazon really quick, Doug, because I'd like to know a little bit about your technology, your SOP. How do you find products? Do you tend to find products in the market that are a good margin and then just bring it to Amazon, or do you use Amazon research before you go and figure out what product you want to launch next?
Good question. I'll say I think a hybrid of both. right? Like my best product that I have now, um, I came upon it, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. I was at a trade show, just walking around, and ding, it hit me. And it hit me because of what I saw at the show, plus my familiarity with the marketplace on Amazon, right?
So
So,
you looked on Amazon and you saw an opportunity a little bit there.
well, yeah, I mean, I always look on Amazon. I mean, not
Yeah.
recently, but back when I was the man running that stuff and responsible for those things, I was very familiar with my competitors, very familiar with new products hitting the market. And so that familiarity bouncing around in my mind as I'm walking through the trade show, I had an idea, and that was it. And that's become my best product. So like when I go to the trade show now, I can look at things, and if something looks great to me, I will definitely go back and look at the market. I don't pretend that because I think it's awesome, it's going to be a home run. It still comes down to what is the market telling you people want, right? That's key. Like and like that would be like, okay, let's research some of these keywords. Oh, there's no volume. Okay, well, there you go. You might think it's so awesome. Well, there's no volume. So fine. Maybe you want to do it anyway. Okay, but just don't delude yourself to thinking you're going to be doing $100,000 a month with this product and go buy
Totally.
and go below $30,000 on your initial inventory order, right? Because you'll be tanked, right? Start with like, okay, good, I'm going to do 500 units.
And how much are you considering the competitiveness of the space? Like if you see a couple sellers at 35,000 reviews, are you immediately like, I'm out?
30,
Or are you like, I'm just giving you an example of like, people who are already dominating that space. Like, yeah, I know you're in the pet space and the pet space is bonanzas. We know this, right? So if you find a product you like, you think you can get a good margin, you think the retail price makes sense, and all the numbers work out, but you see a couple guys that are just at the top and they're just pegged there with a flag.
Mhm.
Are you still okay with launching a product in that space, or do you usually go, okay, I'm looking for a little softer market with competitor wise?
Mhm. Well, um, I could be okay with it. I could definitely be okay with it. Again, I need to look at all the info. I'd be okay with it. I'm also okay with the soft launch, softer market too. Because who's that guy? Ryan Moran, right? He did this thing, whatever went viral, whatever. His recipe was good. Can you get 10 products doing 10 grand a month each? Okay, that's 100 grand. Okay, good. So I don't need, I'm not looking for the next product to do. Okay, I need something that's going to, add $250,000 a month to my revenue.
Yeah.
That's great, but I don't need it. And don't think that you're just going to go pick it and launch it. And that's what you're going to be doing. You know,
Mhm.
pick 10 products that you think you can get to 10 grand a month. Okay, good. Come up with a program to launch those 10. And out of those 10, some will do 50 grand a month, some will do 4 grand a month. And out of those 10, maybe one gets to doing 100, 150K a month. So I don't,
Laws of averages.
yeah, I don't look at it. I take more of a holistic, backed out look at a plan rather than just going hog wild on one little thing, right? Because if you just go in on one little thing, all your eggs are in one basket. It's too. I think your ass is out in the wind too much there. But if it's like, okay, good, these are the 10 products that I see I want to do. Okay, good. Now let's do some research on these 10. How fast can I come to market with these 10? Because that's killed me. There's a product I just got to Amazon a few months ago. I wanted to do it 2 years ago. I saw it at a trade show when it was like new. It's taken me like that long to come to market with this thing. I'm not doing
Mhm.
that anymore. If I see a product that's good and I think it's going to be too long to do it, I'm just like, forget it. I'm not doing it. Because
Mm,
now this product, I'm trying to launch it, I'm like buried.
you're buried deep in the competition.
Yeah, I'm buried deep in the competition. And okay, fine. We'll let it roll. But that's not That's not how you're going to grow your successful SKU list, taking a year and a half to come to market. And there's various reasons why, this, that, and the other thing, right? I was doing in the middle of Corona, so that didn't help, right? All the logistic nightmare issues, that was a big thing.
Yeah.
But still, at the end of the day, those are just excuses. Like this long lead time is unacceptable. And anything I launch now, I won't work with I won't do it if the supplier's like, oh, it's going to take 3 months, 4 months, whatever. I probably won't do it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And have you had any complete bombs early on? Because I've had people, come to me and they're riding on that first product. They got their inheritance money on that first product. Was your first product like a success, or was it actually a bomb or a bomb or two before you got into a successful product?
$5 loss each sale, I'd say.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
So there was that product, right? Then Amazon wanted to buy that product. I did the vendor, I forget what it's called, vendor services, whatever, right? Where I sell to them. And then I ran out of stock. And then it bombed after that. I lost my momentum, blah, blah, blah. But it was a bone. It was a knuckle bone I was selling. And totally honest, I have a German Shepherd. He would go to town on the knuckle bone. And I saw him pooping one time. And he's pooping out the bone. And he's like yelping as he's trying to take a crap.
Oh,
Oof.
And I said, that's it. No more bones. I'm done with the bones. I don't care. And I said, that's it on the bones. And I ditched the bone because it wasn't a good product. And I will not sell a product that I won't comfortably give my own dogs and be confident, happy, sure that it's benefiting them. I just won't do it. I don't care how much it makes.
I just want to say, Doug will not give a dog a bone, right? He will not give a dog a bone.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So that was a bomb. That was a bomb. And then the next two products that I identified, I still sell to this day. And one of them is responsible for 30% of my total revenue, but only 15% of my total margin.
I love how your dashboard is behind you on a whiteboard. You're like, let me take a look at my whiteboard on where my revenue numbers are at.
I love the whiteboard. I'm a whiteboard addict. I think I just love it.
Yeah, I just got a whiteboard. Great. I'm pretty into it myself.
Yeah, just kind of changing subjects here because we can cut this up, Doug, and we'll do that to kind of splice things up. I want to shift into kind of management topics. So, for me, it's we'll do this one. It's like, who are you listening to today? Like, where are you getting your strategic thoughts, your new thoughts? That's outside your team. Like, who are you listening to that's outside your circle today?
Well, okay, couple people. Rowan Frazier. I don't know if you guys know him. He's an amazing businessman, entrepreneur. He was partners with Ryan Dice on Traffic and Funnels.
Mm-hmm.
Right, they were partners. Anyway, Rowan Frazier, I'm in his Epic Mastermind, which is on business acquisition. He's amazing. Also, Grant Cardone. He's an amazing businessman as well. And I'm also in the $1 Million Sellers Mastermind. And these masterminds are critical. I don't know how else to say it, but I love it. I love getting around people who are just amazing. Sometimes I have a tendency, something I don't like about myself is I have a tendency to, if left to my own devices, be sort of a hermit. Not really a hermit, but hermit-ish. And that's not the way to growth. So sometimes I have to kick myself to get out and go to these things. And then whenever I do, I'm like, oh God, I'm so glad I came. I can't believe I was not going. The connections are vital, and other people.
For sure, man. I'm the same way, right? We get comfortable, right? We get comfortable in our little routine. We're sitting at the computer, we're talking with the same people, and we're just worried about making sure that that's going good.
Yeah.
And then making room, because we don't leave ourselves room making room for doing some of these extra things. It's interesting to hear your perspective on that. I'm the same way. I don't think I would describe it that way, but I think after hearing you say it, I would. Like I just don't want to admit I'm a hermit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. It's nothing to brag about. Like just the other day, I was thinking like, how do I make myself really uncomfortable without putting myself in danger, myself or my family in danger? But how do I create that atmosphere of discomfort to really give me a giant bolt in the ass?
Yeah.
I haven't figured it out yet, but I want to.
I was like, talk about that, man. I want to hear it. I love it.
Yeah.
You know, this kind of topic, right? That's a mindset, right?
Yeah.
That idea that like you are looking for ways to inject yourself with something, right? To, you know, keep the energy alive, to keep the interest alive, to sort of like get new perspectives and really kind of like, you know, change your view on things. You know, again, we can cut this, but like what are your thoughts on that? Like how are you thinking about those types of things? Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm really big on trying to identify like where I'm resistant to change, right? Like someone introduces something and it's hard because you've got to pay close attention to like you've got to have real good self-presence and awareness to do this.
Mhm.
If you're not dialed into who you are, or like what's, you know, your little micro emotions and stuff, it's difficult. This is difficult to do. But if someone says something like, "Hey, I think we should try this or do this," and it just goes against my grain, I have a little radar that says like, "Okay, well, let me back off and think about that." And then, okay, let's go ahead and try it. Like, what's the risk? To your point, like, what's the risk here? Really, it's not dangerous. It's just something I don't think is going to work.
Mhm.
Um, and let's, you know, let it go. Like, let's see how it goes. And I have been wrong so many times on my initial instinct, that
Mhm.
now I'm like starting to get those little triggers, and it's becoming like a reinforcing kind of thing. You know, where once I kind of get that very subtle, you know, feeling, I'm like, well, let's give it a shot and see how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Like for me, I believe that necessity level drives hard. It's the hard driver, right? When me and Ian were talking business 4 years ago,
Yeah.
I
5 years ago.
yeah, my business was like a fraction of what it is now. His business was just a wet dream in his
It was
head.
an idea.
It was an
Yeah.
idea. And so, but then his necessity level was massive at the time. And mine was also. But that was so necessity is the big driver. And so I'm thinking, how do I need to create a new level of necessity in my world so that I can solve that problem. Because when there's necessity there, you solve the problems, right? Comfort's a killer.
That makes sense to me. I mean, everything you're sharing to me makes sense to me. But I think like people are listening to this. I think they'd be benefit to like hear an example, right? Like, how do you, what's an example of something where like you've
Okay,
created the necessity?
here's an example. Um, I was 2 years ago, I had to engage in a lawsuit. And my lawyer said, okay, so at this stage, it's going to be about 20 grand a month every month till we're done. Now, I don't know about you guys, but at the time, I didn't have 20 grand a month to send this guy every month until it was over. Like, I'm committed.
Who does? Yeah, exactly.
Peel 20 grand off the top and just boom. And I was like, oh, and I couldn't fold at that point. I'd already been in 6 months in the lawsuit, and here it's like 5 grand a month, 7 grand a month. He's like, okay, now at this level, it's 20 grand a month. And shortly after that, he said, okay, now it's 20 to 50 grand a month every month until we're done if we keep going. And I had to double down and push that good. I'm not going to back off. We gotta roll this thing to the end. So that so what did I do? Okay, talk about peeling back data, finding out where money's lost, finding out how do I grow the revenue on my highest margin products? How do I cut costs? Where am I going to get this 20 grand from? And what that did during that time period, what did I do? I grew. I grew. So I don't know. I think that's a pretty good example.
That's a great example, man. I didn't know it was that bad, Doug. Like how much you were spending.
Yeah. 20 G's a month, every month. Boom, boom, boom.
That's insane.
Yeah, just calling it out, man. It's like, story of how you start your business. You got this huge legal thing that's out there. Like, what other major challenges have you had to deal with besides the normal stuff, right? Finding a product, selling that to finding a manufacturer that's high quality, selling it to the shopper, and knowing that you're positioning it correctly. That sounds like table stakes for you.
Well, another major thing I had to do a recall back in 2019, and I knew absolutely nothing about that. Nothing. FDA showed up at my house with their badges. Where's Doug? Is Doug here? My daughter called me. Doug, the FDA here looking for you. I'm like, what? 2 guys with badges. So
crazy.
That was, and then I spent the next week with Mr. FDA man in my warehouse doing his inspection and investigation. So that
How'd it turn out?
It turned out as best as it possibly could have. They found there was no major violations that they found, which was incredible. And I created a good working relationship with the FDA, and I learned a lot, and I completely revamped, a lot of things that I was doing, food safety wise in the warehouse. So
yeah,
it was great. But again, pressure cooker, talk about necessity level, massive, right? So, I like the necessity level things, but like I said, those weren't created by myself. So it's like, okay, I want some necessity now, but I don't want the threat to myself, my business, and my family that usually comes with necessity. So how do I create that without the actual threat?
I was just thinking about Alex Holland when you're talking about this. You guys know who Alex Holland is?
No.
He's the guy who does free soloing. He goes up a rock with no rope.
I've seen him.
El Cap, no rope.
Yeah.
Okay. This guy, his heart rate doesn't even go up. They've actually tested on a bracelet. His heart rate stays the same the whole way thing up the mountain.
Oh my God.
And I've heard him talk about in an interview that he's like, I have a really hard time getting my necessity up, getting myself, threat of danger.
Wow.
Because if you go up, thousands of feet with no rope, and that doesn't do it, what the is going to do it?
Nothing.
Right? So, it's just inspiring because it just goes to show you that there's levels to this game. There's plateaus.
That's let me say absolutely. I was in some event and Tony Robbins was talking, and I'm not a mega Tony Robbins fan, but he's got some good stories, right? And he was talking about how he bought this business with some investors, and they actually screwed him over. And at the end of the deal, he owed like $60 million. And he figured it out. And then I heard Russell Brunson talking about how he started with his potato gun and the various issues he had with the IRS and so on and so forth. And what I realized is that these absolute monsters, they got there on a gradient. First they're hit with boom, you got to come up with 10 grand tomorrow. Oh my God. Then it's the IRS is good. You need to give us 150 grand by the end of this month or we're shutting you down. You're going to jail. Oh, and then it's Tony Robbins, 60 million. So they got there by conquering those ever increasing levels of necessity and threat. I don't know anybody who just goes from down here to now, running a multi-$100 million business without those stepping stones in between. And so, like the lawsuit that I engaged in, the FDA thing, those are all my ever increasing stepping stones of threat. So when something like that happens, I'm kind of good with it. I'm like, good, I'm doing the Tony Robbins thing. Next is going to be $60. Russell Brunson. Okay. He would laugh at this now. He would laugh at it, but it's only because he's already come up through that level.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm okay with coming into those things, and I think they're necessary to arrive at a higher level. You don't just get there overnight. There's stepping stones in between.
Like, 100% agreed. I'm sitting here wondering what's going to knock on my door tomorrow. Let's see.
Well,
But
I love this phrase though, Doug. I wrote it down in the notes, right? You get there on a gradient. Like you hit these levels, right? Like you're probably looking back at the challenges from 2 years ago that were significant, right? They kept you up at night. They stressed you out. You're talking about them with your wife. And now you're like, I don't even know why that was a big deal.
Right.
That's nothing compared to what I'm dealing with this other thing.
Yeah. You've got more resources to throw at problems. I mean, that's it. Like, look, money make problems go away. Money and people.
More money, more problems, right?
I'm okay
so, what
with
did you learn from last year, Doug? Give me your 2022 takeaways on Amazon. A lot of people say they were squeezed. I hear that all the time. Being squeezed, FBA fees going up, shipping containers going up. But what's your overall takeaway for last year?
overall last year. Now, truth be told, what you see on that board, I'm doing a SWOT analysis for my business for 2022. And so I'm still gathering data, looking at things and so on. But, last year, I would say even more so doubling down on making data-driven decisions. And the health of the company has to come first. It's not about what I want or how I feel. Those two things are not part of the math equation. It comes down to data, and that's what's going to save you or sink you. Even more so than because as margins get squeezed, right? When you got fat margins, if you make a decision or do a screw up that costs you 10 or 20 grand, I don't care. I got the margin to absorb it. But as those things get squeezed, those mistakes, you can't afford those mistakes anymore. Those mistakes will now take you out. Or if you're now so big, if you're now doing $100,000, $200,000, $100,000, $200,000, $200,000 POs, a mistake could be $40,000.
Yeah, exactly.
You were doing a PO for $5,000 and a mistake, it's an extra $100. Okay,
stakes are higher.
I'll live with that. Stakes are higher. So
yeah.
Now being data driven now is more vital than ever.
Wow. So like the amount of emotion versus data, starting out was probably necessity level, emotionally driven. I need to do this or I'm going to be dead. I need to feed the kids. Now you're over here on a higher plane. You're looking at data. Emotion is not even in the equation.
Yeah, there's less emotion, and fortunately, and I guess maybe unfortunately, a bit of a double-edged sword. Because on one hand, it's fortunate that emotion is not part of it. Right? You can look at the data and not be shifted or skewed by your emotion. That's good. Then at the same time, you also need that emotion to bust through the barriers and to demand from yourself the next level.
Yeah, you don't want to be a robot. Be like, okay, we're doing fine, everything's good. You want to move, push through things, right?
And you don't want to be satisfied with where you are. Like that's what Grant Cardone does amazing. Like his internal demand of himself is incredible. And I wish I had that like he does. That I would say is a weak point in myself that I don't like. If I could get some of that, that'd be great.
Well, there's always tomorrow. So where do we go from here? Where's Doug's strategy for his pet brand going into the new year and beyond? You're doing well on Amazon. Outside of Amazon, where are we headed?
Mm-hmm. I'm looking at how to, and this Roland Frazier sort of illuminated this. I'm looking into ways to create a flywheel for my business, like acquiring an asset, for example, that flings off benefits to multiple areas of the business with this one asset. And it's just a flywheel and it just keeps going and going, right? Because moving into the next year, it's even more so than ever about profitability and scaling. How can I scale further in a way that requires less capital? Capital is expensive now, right? I have a I have a line of credit. I think it's like 7%, something like that. Used to not be that. So capital's expensive. So you need to be mindful of these things like going forward. Capital's expensive. Workforce is expensive, hard to get. Good. So how do when I acquire something, there needs to be multiple benefits across multiple pieces of my brand, not just one, because that's what's going to ensure that the brand wins. Even if one of those things don't work out, okay, fine. Well, there's 2 or 3 other benefits down here that this thing was doing for me where I'm still winning.
So give me an example, like buying another brand in the same space and leveraging the fact that maybe they have a manufacturing capability you didn't have, like leveraging things.
Okay. Yeah, leveraging something like that. Or it could be like, okay, buying a newsletter, buying a current newsletter that has a crap ton of traffic, that maybe profits in some way. But good, looking at that newsletter, okay, good. How can I use that newsletter to get emails to market to? Use that newsletter to survey from the people of that newsletter to find out what they want. I could use the people on that newsletter to steer me on my next product, for example, while profiting from that newsletter in and of itself. And that newsletter benefit my website. Because now,
and product launches and everything that goes on, because it steps down. Yeah.
Right. So now instead of having a 5,000 man email list, I bring in that newsletter and I double my email list in 4 months. So that's what I mean by the flywheel, like acquisition of something that's going to spin off and breed lots of babies, if you will.
Love that example. And are you launching more products this year too? Always be launching.
Yeah, I am. Yep. Beautiful. Yep. Yeah. I'll probably, like I said, in those products, like my criteria has changed on those products a bit. I'm more, my criteria has changed. There needs to be more margin, if you will, less demand on my personal resources. Like, for example, I have, okay, good. So if I can launch a product and have my contract manufacturer handle everything, well, that's huge, right? Otherwise, it has to come to me. I need to touch it, blah, 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 in my warehouse. I don't really want that because now I need a bigger warehouse. I need more people. But if I can leverage the contract manufacturer's warehouse, employees, staffing, etc., not only am I de-risked from a food safety perspective, but also my overhead is de-risked, right? So that's an example of what I mean by, I'm weighing things differently in 2023 as to launching. Like, okay, good. Is this something I'm going to have to touch and handle? And if it scales up to 100 grand a month, that's going to mean I need 4 more employees in the warehouse and more warehouse space. Or can I launch something over here with this guy that's totally scalable? I never have to touch it. Okay, I'm going with that over there.
Yeah. You got options now, Doug. And you got the ability, and you got not just options. You've been playing the game long enough so you know what you want. You've been through the situations where you've leveraged, launched a product, took a big gamble. Maybe the product didn't take off. You're like, now I'm laying off a couple employees.
I've got something now that you're going to solve for me. I've got a product.
I'm ready.
That I'm telling you, there's guys that do $500,000 a month. Like if I could just be above, if I could be in the top 3/4 of page 1.
Oh, I know what product you're talking about.
Oh yeah, doing 75 grand a month.
Yeah.
Boom. So, and there's guys doing $500,000 a month on it. So with this one product that I launched last year, I lost 20 grand all year. Cost me 20 grand. And right now, I'm okay with that. Going forward, I have ways to mitigate that. And just to give you guys some valuable info, what killed me on that lost 20 grand was the PPC. PPC, if I did no PPC, I would have made 30 grand. So I would have made another $50,000.
But you don't know what your top line would have been without PPC.
No, I don't.
So that's kind of hard.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to give too much info, but I've turned PPC off of products. Not even a blip in sales. not even a blip.
Wow.
So,
A blip meaning negative.
Yeah.
No negative result.
negative. And no
Because you have, I think it's because you've really solidified your position on these categories. You have a great product. You probably have avid customers. You have subscribe and saves all day for days, and you spent a lot of years building that up to the point where you can do that.
Yeah.
And more kudos to you, Doug.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Well, hey, we have to conclude, even though I want to pick your brain for another hour. I think we have to step off. Thanks for coming in and doing this call with us. There's going to be some golden nuggets here.
I hope so.
That are going to be takeaway for some other sellers. So thank you.
Yeah, Doug, this is great, man. I mean, personally, like, you helped me kind of turn on some things through this conversation.
Great.
The mindset conversation that you had about necessity, right? And then the other thing that I thought was really interesting was, pulling out that periscope to really think through, like, hey, if I'm going to do something, right, how can I get more value out of it? That's that newsletter. How do you leverage your manufacturer to, to find ways for them to do more, so you're not having to do it? Because that may have been the old way you were doing it, and now you got to start thinking about new ways to do it. Those are really good nuggets for me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great, guys.
Thanks, man.